Good morning, folks. It's a little late in the game, but I get to stay late today. So we're going to get some work done. Give me a second here to check in on my signal. If you're catching this in the future, I'll get past all the intro stuff in like a minute. So if you want to skip ahead and see what kind of stuff we got going on today, you are certainly welcome to do so. But anyone else that's trapped here in space-time with me here now, my name is Phil Kearney. What's up? I create role-playing games. I illustrate them and I publish them online, and we are creating an adventure for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. We'll keep that. Dungeons & Dragons, using the new 5e24 rules, is called Crystals of Mabar. It's set in the Eberron campaign world. We're fighting undead, necromancers, and demons in the Carnwood of Carnath on the continent of Corvair. Let's see. Pressing buttons to finish my uploads. I got like 5 or 6 buttons left to press. I've been a DM since like 1987. I've been a freelance illustrator since 1999. I've been an Eberron enthusiast since 2004, and I've been creating content on the DMsGuild since 2017. But I haven't published any adventures, and and I haven't published anything specifically for Eberron yet. So I am fixing that business with this adventure. It's for levels 7 and 8. And it does a good job establishing like a bastion for the team, getting you involved in Carnathi deputies or the marshals, like fight the Talanta halfling plague that's overtaken all of the southeast of Carnath in the Plains region. I'm done with my button pressing, so now I can actually get to work with you guys. So let me flip this here, and hey, if you think this stuff is cool today, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications when we're live in the future. Here is a bunch of stuff that I've already published on the DMsGuild. Be welcome to check out all that stuff as you please. It's chock full of my art and ideas, and all has 100% free preview. If you just click the preview button, you can see the work in its entirety. I would so much rather you look at my work and decide you don't like it than for you to cough up dollars and then not like the book. So I want you to have the book first, know that you love it, and then if you want to buy it to support me, God bless you. Otherwise, I'm glad I could help share some of my ideas with you guys, and if they aren't to your taste, then that's no skin off my nose. Honestly, I'm going to have to do this stuff whether I do or not, but if you do want to support me, Patreon down below. Liking and subscribing is amazing for me to continue to grow and reach more people, to share the gospel of good gaming, and as interpreted by Phil. All right, so what we're doing here is this is the 16:9 format that we use in the PDF. Since it's a digital-only product, we can afford to have eccentric ads, page sizes, and this is 17 by 10 inches, which snaps into a 16:9 space very well. And so this is the monster manual section. This is the full stats for the Ghast, Ghoul, and Imp from the monster manual that's been published. It's the updated 2024. I just duplicated it here because Ghouls, Ghast, and Imps are throughout the adventure. So I want to make it easy for you guys to get access to them with a button click. So anytime you see the word Ghast in the adventure, you can click that and it'll take you to the stat block. Same for Ghoul, Imp, or all the monsters that are in here. But we had a big blank spot, because this is how little the Ghoul stat block is. This is a 12-point font that we're using. I could have shrank this down to like a 10-point font and like short and like got it like to here to have this much space available. But I think this is a really easy. Even I can read this at this distance, and y'all know I'm legally blind, so this is really really good. And so we had this big empty space. We need to fill it with something. We encounter these guys in one of the graveyards that are inside the manifest zone that we're exploring. So I figure let's just do a guy crawling out of a grave. So that's what we're gonna do. That's the piece that we're working on. Hey, what's going on? Hey, Albert, holy shit, my dude, what is going on? You live in Portugal? Holy crap. Oh man, that's fantastic. What a great move, man. Congratulations. I mean, if you're working digitally anyway on stuff, you can live where the hell you want. Man, I hope that pans out to be a super good decision for you. Congratulations. Albert is one of my playtesters. He used to live in Seattle with me, and we would do occasionally catch each other on drinking draws, going to a bar, and kicking out the sketchbook with a crew of other people. I wish I had participated more in that, because that was a lot of fun. I'm like up in Everett now. It's a pain in the ass to go down to Seattle. Okay, so and he also does content on DMsGuild. He creates Eberron assets. I think the last one you released was like about a week or so ago. So go check out his stuff. Albert, drop me your shit in Discord, and I'll make sure I add it to the post. Let's see. What I'm whinging on here is organizing myself to get going with this illustration. So I'm going to go into the master set here. Let's go find the gatekeeper section. So 89, 92, I think it's 97, 90, 97, 98. This is the page, the ground that we're going to use in here. I want to reference from another illustration we had done previously. So it's a biggie, so it's going to take a second to load itself. But this thing's going to be done in I want to say in about 2 weeks. But you know how illustrations and fill go. There is no set. I don't have deadlines on my own stuff that I publish for myself. I do this because I have to paint. I have to make books. I have no fucking choice. Yeah, I like this one. Hold on. I'll zoom this one in for you guys. This slick 16:9 format page. There we go. This is if the characters. So if you're using the the Gatekeeper Druid plot hook, where you're sent into the manifest zone to destroy it and kill anyone involved, you're given a gate seal. A gate seal is like a 2-ton brick that is carved in runes that are designed to basically seal a manifest zone and kill it, so that you can no longer so the planes no longer touch Eberron at that location. They're expensive. They're incredibly rare. The how to make them is reported to be lost. There's no way. But I mean, of course, the Druids will tell you we don't know how to build those anymore. That way, they can come along and drop them occasionally when they need to, like in this instance. So you don't have to lug a 2-ton stone around. You get basically a sling stone. And as long as that sling stone lands somewhere inside the nexus of the manifest zone, like at the heart of the manifest zone, which is where this ritual is taking place, it'll automatically expand and then drop on and then seal the gate. So it's basically a one-shot kill. All you need is an attack action, and you'll be able to get it unless they have defenses that can completely deflect it somehow. It's a sure thing. There's a lot of ways to end this adventure. There's 6 distinct plot hooks, and each of them have different solutions inside of them. So you can play around with a lot of different ideas. But this is the environment that I wanted. This is what Mabar does to the ground when you let it run rampant. It starts to take it over with this necrotic coffee grind sort of material. And then they have all these little poisonous fungus patches that end up growing and releasing poison that fills the environment and forces constitution saving throws, or you get levels of exhaustion. If you breathe this stuff too long unprotected, it'll kill you. And then you'll rise as an undead, and then you'll go off and slaughter or drag more people back here. So I wanted to grab this real quick just to get this color reference here, because I'm going to be utilizing this. And while I'm at it, I may as well grab this. Copy. There we go. What we see here, this is a necrotic chrysalis that forms around Solzu, who's performing the ritual with the Eye of Mabar. And so when you throw the gate seal, it'll end up shattering the chrysalis and it'll kill him. It was filling up. If it fails, then he becomes like a Counterloth or a lesser being. So that's the story behind this particular illustration. So this area, these little vignettes and stuff like this that I get to do are a really great opportunity for me to create little environmental effects and and references throughout, so that there's more visual language in the adventure for the DM to be able to describe the environment that the players are exploring throughout the adventure. So now that we have our color reference, because I don't see colors, so I everything that I do, it has to be off of a color reference someplace. Whether it's like an environmental photo or like a Magic the Gathering card or some other reputable reference source. Since I only see gray vision, I'm really good with values and creating contrasts and a lot of pop in my pieces, when I do a good job. So, I mean, quality may vary. Thank you. But let's write reference here. But I can I can do color anyway, because the Adobe Photoshop provides me with a sweet little RGB slider up here in the corner. So whenever I'm referencing a color, the RGB will shift to match what that color is. So I know this is green because it's R red, G green, B blue. It's G heavy, so that means it's green to a certain degree. If it were inverted with green behind blue and red, it'd be purple. So there's a really neat color, like visual color balance between the contrasts and opposites on the color wheel. So as long as I know what my RGB is, I don't need to know the specifics of the color. I can go off the slider, which means I lose a lot of subtleties like heat and like lighting and heat and like shadow cool. There's some real subtle nuances there that I'm only just starting to understand. But I'm going to switch to my guitar pick. I call it a guitar pick because it looks like a guitar pick. It's got a hard front edge where I point, and then it's got a softer back side where it's curved, so I can make different, depending on the strength of the opacity, I can make different types of smudge effects. And this one, I just want to push. I mean, I could use my paintbrush and just paint this stuff in along the ground like I'm doing. I mean, that'd be logical, right? But see, here I am painting it in. Here I am smudging it in. Not a big difference. I don't know why. I love the smudge tool. It's like when I'm using a tablet, like I use a Wacom Intuos, a cheap little like $400 board that there's 4 copies sitting on the shelf at Best Buy, which is 3 blocks away from where I live. So I can if this thing ever shits out on me, I've got an emergency art fund for repairing my computer and replacing like a mouse, keyboard, or Wacom tablet. So I just crack that piggy bank and kick over to Best Buy, and I'm back within the hour, back up and running. So I am truly blessed, truly blessed to have so much infrastructure for how Phil works built around him. Because Phil doesn't drive; he's too blind. I've got horrible vision. I was born without some machinery in my head, so it limits what my camera. I can't update my firmware. I'm not 100% compatible with the camera that operates inside of my head. So there's some technical issues that I deal with in modern society. But boy, what a blessing to be alive during this day when those inconveniences aren't lethal. There, I like smoothing. I like using a smudge brush because I can smooth things out. I'm dropping the opacity of this from 80, where we were hard pushing, and now it's down to 30, where we're doing soft blending. It's never too early to blend your environment, and the way that I do illustrations is they all basically break out or fade into the text. And in this instance, I think fading into the text is the best way to go for the composition. That's just how it feels. And since most of this is just environmental groundwork, I can let this like bleed underneath all 3 sides of this without having to add too much intensity to the amount of detail work that I need to do. Because I'm just going to basically Bob Ross this stuff for a little bit. And then we'll get into like serious like illustration figure mode when we get to the ghoul that's crawling out of the grave. This was this thing happened about 500 years ago, before Karnath got involved with the blood of Vol. It was its main religion was the sovereign host, just like everyone else was. So this forgotten graveyard that surfaces once the. So what happens is you go into the Karnwood. There's a manifest zone that connects to the plane of Mabar. Mabar is. I'm going to switch to my cloud brush because I want to do some serious blending. And as much as I love the guitar pick, it's best for pushing. This cloud brush here is made from Bob Ross videos, so it's really, really good for making puffy little clouds, and, and whatnots. Come on, buddy. Let's zoom in here. Delicate touch. What is going? You are acting. This brush is acting weird. I need to go look at what its brush settings are because something feels off about it. Nope, that's not right. Huh. Something feels off. There we go. Okay. I don't know what was going on, but apparently opening and closing the brush settings fix it. Adobe really wants me to update to 2025. I'm still rocking 2022. And they're like, we don't want to support 2022 anymore. We want to focus on our current set. So we want you to update whether you like it or not. I tell you, man, I really miss the old buy your own copy and don't expect update Photoshop. I don't need virtually. I mean, all the upgrades that they're doing to Photoshop right now is involving AI, and I don't need it. I don't want it. I don't need it. And all these upgrades are just pointless to me. It's shitifying my art program, and it makes me want to think about Clip Art Studio. But I am such an Adobe baby. I've been using Photoshop for 25 years, so. I had some stints with GIMP and Corel. I've opened Clip Art Studio before, but it just doesn't feel intuitive to me. And I know that Adobe Photoshop is like the most expensive art program you can have. But I guess I make books and sell them to feed my addiction. My Adobe addiction. But I use Microsoft Word for my my page editing for like when I actually I design stuff in Google Docs because it's really easy to to give a link to the editor, give them status, and for them to go through and do like proofreading and all that other shit. And once they're done with it, I grab it, extract it, and then drop it into Microsoft Word and do all my construction in there. I think Microsoft Word is an incredibly versatile tool. I could spend another $10 a month and get Adobe Illustrator. I've been using Microsoft Word to build books for almost 8 years now, and 9 years now, and I'm again really familiar with it. It's never going away, and it is incredibly robust. I can do literally anything that I want to do. I can do inside of Microsoft Word. Hey, what's going on? I stopped using Photoshop last year and switched over to Photopea. When Adobe started incorporating more AI, Photopea feels like Photoshop. No shit. Thanks for the tip. Does it handle PSD files? Because my other big concern about switching over to another program is losing. I guess I could just convert everything to TIFF and retain the layers. God, that'd be a lot of work. Hundreds of illustrations. I'm just concerned about not being able to interact or like doing something to one of how one of my old pieces would still sit as a PDF file, or a PSD file. I am sold, man. I'm not sold. I am now in the consideration phase. So I did not anticipate myself getting here today, but thank you. I loved that. 1999 was the first year I started doing freelance illustrations for RPGs and stuff. So yeah, that's going to be an old school feeling. I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to check that out, dude. Thank you. I'll take their mandatory year-long subscription rate to buy my way out and find myself to a different space. That sounds fucking fun. gratuitous day. Thank you, Albert. Hey, Albert, do me a favor and make sure I have your email so that when I publish this, I can slide you that comp copy. Like I said, Albert was one of my original playtesters in this. He played a Warforged, which was great. But yeah, I had 4 separate crew run through here. I had 2 other DMs other than myself playtesting it as well. So the bones in this thing are pretty damn solid, and the suggestions that came from the DMs was just how to make it easier on the players so that they don't get killed so quickly. That's a compliment to me, and it's easy to back off the amount of monsters that you got coming at somebody. I mean, you could easily add them on too, but if you assume you hit hard fast when you build the thing, it's a better vibe to be able to just back off instead of having to artificially introduce more stuff to try to challenge the players. It's a subtle detail, but as a DM, I am always in favor of hit the team hard and fast and make them scared right out the gate, and then let them clawing their way to success be a means for you to scale down the level of threat to stay in pace with where their resources and health bar is at. So if you pop them really hard up front and don't give them the chance to rest, then they're in a depleted state. They're already chewing up their resources, and they're going to be looking for an exit maybe sooner than one is going to be available. So that's what good adventuring is all about. So if the team dives into this manifest zone, they're going to have to slog around in it for about an hour or so before they find anything that can actually move them forward, which means that they're basically sitting ducks for any undead or demons to pick at while they're traversing. There's a lot of different conditions and environmental hazards that are inside the manifest zone. So it's not just a flat plane of dead vegetation that you're fighting basically on an empty board. There's a lot of bones that incomplete skeletons that can't form a proper undead unto themselves grow out of the ground like thorn bushes or like briar patches made of bone. So it's like a bone-like material that acts like a plant, and it's razor sharp. So if you get anywhere near that stuff, it'll deal slashing damage to you for going through the area. Kind of like spike growth. It's basically an unnatural spike growth that grows on its own from the dead skeletons that can't rise and walk away on their own. I think that's like one of the hazards. It's the rainy season. All this area is basically without the vegetation starting to flood. And it is mostly a flat plain, except of all these little sinkholes and indentations that fill up with this necrotic water that gets polluted and cursed by the necrotic energies of the plane of Mabar. And so if you get into the water, it can disease you, it can poison you, so that you are at disadvantage until you have a chance to take a short rest, and then it can infect you with night plague, which is a like a quote-unquote disease. We don't have diseases in 2024, they're afflictions. But basically, it infects you with a necrotic sickness that, again, exhaustion. Every day, if you don't make your saving throw, it gets worse. And you need consecutive saving throws to get rid of the effect. So it is an attrition mechanic that's designed to kill you over days, and it covers you over with the same coffee grounds that we dot along the surface of the ground. So I've whinged on this surface long enough, I think. Let's move to some topography. I'm going to take this. I'm just going to work this directly, I think. So I'm going to take this and this, the undead layer. I'm going to drop the undead layer like that, just so I have a reference point to it. But I'm going to, let's grab our mountain. Yeah, that's right. Good. Okay. feel like something's amiss. Oh, yeah. There we go. That's on point. I'm just going to do some rough grounds. No, that's not the right brush for this task. I guess we'll go back to my guitar pick. The pusher. Yeah, that'll do. We're just going to do some topography in here just to push the materials around. And something is just... I'm feeling some hate from my keyboard, not from my tablet. Something is misaligned. Maybe I bet there's a driver update for Wacom, and I just haven't grabbed it yet. I just want to create. This is going to be like hills, like Bob Ross style, painting hills, where the top edge of it is defined and a hard point, and it fades down into the soil beneath it, and then we'll texture over it to have more grittiness coming through it. Like at the base where it fades out, that's a good place for us to feed in that crystal texture that we have up here. It'll fade. It'll be a good natural fade, and then we'll have little crinkles at the top of these mounds to show that it's just heaped up crystals. It's like coffee grounds. The soil is depleted with necrotic energy, and the unnatural plants in the plane of Mabar start to terraform and replace the forest environment. That basically the necrotic energy first rots the forest into a necrotic slurry of kind of like a wetland swamp, and then in that swamp it dries and crusts over, and from that the Mabaran plants, the crustation of the soil with the necrotic death of the plant matter creates this moss. We call it plague moss, and from plague moss grows like little black dandelions that when you push and they hit a bare patch of ground, it necrotizes the soil if it isn't already dead, and then the death of that flower causes more plague moss to grow. So that's how it replicates itself. The plague moss also spawns into Vipina Lotharia, which is a glowing green. That's what these things are back here. These little patches, like that. That's Vipina Lotharia. It glows unnaturally. So the entire region has dim light as a result of the fungus patches that are growing throughout the region. And they also release the stinking cloud effect, like the spell Stinking Cloud. If you step into it and fail a Constitution saving throw, you can't take any actions or bonus actions. All you can do is move until you can get out of the stuff. So if you step into it, you lose your actions for the turn from throwing up and once you step out of it, you'll get your action economy back, but it's too late for the turn. It's already gone. If you succeed your saving throw, no problems, but you never grow immune to the effect. So every time you step into that shit, so you've got daggers growing out of the ground. You've got this poisonous fog that takes away your action economy. There's also mushrooms called emerald caps that will grow in the soil as well, but they don't do anything specific. But all these different materials can be used to craft different alchemical properties, and the mushrooms in particular can be boiled down into a resin that you can wipe on your eye, and then you get dark vision. And the dark vision lasts for however long until you take your next short or long rest. So it has so it's really useful. It is a non-magical means of giving non-dark vision creatures dark vision just by wiping the stuff on your eye. I mean, it's disgusting to wipe it on your eye, but the effects are undeniable. You now have dark vision. So if you wanted to start exploring Underdark and do some Gloomstalky type stuff without having to carry torches and stuff, you might want to start harvesting these mushrooms yourself. so that you can dive into that space and not have to carry a light source with you to do it. So that's fun. That's one of the reasons why the Emerald Claw is creating this manifest zone in the first place, is because they need funding. They need fucking money and resources for them to continue to operate, because they are no longer the military intelligence arm of the Karrnath army. In fact, they are now war criminals for using necromancy on neighboring countries, which was their sole duty, to raise the dead, whether allies or enemies, to continue to attack the enemies. Karrnath was running low on people, so they needed to get creative, and the Blood of Vul, the undead religion of basically like the humanist undead religion of Karrnath, which was a cult, grew into the nation's religion to support the spread of necromancy, so that they wouldn't just get bowled over by Aundair. I think was their biggest threat. Aundair and Sire were the two countries that bordered them directly. So those are also the two most magic heavy technology, like the two most magic heavy areas at the time. So that's a severe fucking threat to them. So undead was Karrnath's solution. And once they did the Thronehold Treaty, they made it illegal. Now I can hide the corpse for a little bit, so I can check my lines here. So it has this fungus, right, that grows in all the rot, and these graves are filling up with water because it's the rainy season and it's being deluged, and the soil can't absorb the water; it just runs off, and there's no vegetation to absorb the water, so they just fall into sinkholes. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to underlight this grave, and have there be moss inside of here that creates underglow, so that when we create the corpse, we'll have highlights underneath it, and then indirect highlights on the upper surface. I think that'll make for a really creepy, cool effect. But again, the reason I'm doing these illustrations like, well, I want to fill the space, and it looks weird if I don't. But again, the other benefit is I can start creating environmental, like visual environmental language that gives the DM prompts to understand what is this environment like. I can describe the environment in text, but being able to actually illustrate it, like this is what the lighting look like. The lighting's from the ground, like in Big Trouble in Little China, and it has this weird prickliness to it, and so I think this really helps lock in the unusual environment that this adventure presents. And I love that. I love being able to produce those illustrations to help lock in the theme that I'm looking for. This is too far away. I need to bring it forward a little bit. There. And I want to open this up a little bit more. I need to bring this down. I'm starting to feel like they're mountains, so I'm just naturally building mountains. There are no mountains. Like, this isn't like a 2-mile tall monument stone, though that'd be fucking cool. That is beyond the scope of what this adventure is. I want to have mounds here of upturned earth, not mountains. So I need to change my scale here and stay gritty here close to the ground. Now we can do these like little sync effects like this, these little rundowns here, knowing that we're going to underlight all this stuff. But I want to push this like that, and then I want to drop this here. I want to, ooh, that's fun. Let's do that. Let's go with tilt. Ooh, and then I mean, that's obviously not a perfect headstone or anything. It's pretty slop still, but I'm getting a language thing going here. Let's go free transform and then skew. Let's give it a tilt. That feels pretty good. So I've got after I finish this, there's 5 more illustrations. Little vignettes like this that we want to put inside of the book, and with any luck and grace, we'll be able to have all 5 of them will be similar environmental type pieces. These are pretty low stress, quick pieces to do. The texturing takes care of almost all the detail that we need, and the texturing I got from Bob Ross Techniques. So they're designed to be fast and impressionistic, but when you squint your eyes a little bit, it looks like the terrain or the environment that you're actually trying to produce. And it's just Bob. If you've seen Bob Ross's work, he has a very unique approach to creating environments, and it was pardon the pun, it was a joy to figure out how to take those techniques and translate them into Photoshop. And I figured that out back in 2016, I think, and I've been doing environmental paintings like that ever since. And I think I love that. So when we finish this adventure, this book will publish in the next couple weeks. And when it does, I'm going to have some post-mortem emotional fallout from dropping this book as my primary project. I mean, I've literally been working on it for years, and that saga in my life is coming to a conclusion, and we'll be transitioning over into all the other cool stuff that we've been building on Mondays and Thursday nights. So we'll be able to lean into that stuff, but we'll have a period of time when I'm not actually working on any artwork for a particular book because the books are still under construction. So I need to figure out how to have a better pipeline so that as one book finishes, the next one begins. And I think the real key to that is making sure I lock down the language and the location of all the text in the product so that it's just sitting there waiting for artwork to get dropped in. So essentially what I mean is that I started doing art on this book before I knew how the book was going to actually be resolved, like how it was going, what the word and all that stuff was actually going to be, because I wasn't used to using the 16:9 format. So I had to it was a big fucking challenge for me to figure out how the page was going to sit, and I kept making revisions because as we created more visual language throughout the course of illustrating this, it got a more clear view of how I can express it. So I'd have to keep going back and revising the text in the adventure to make sure the descriptions and the flow of the piece is matching the topography, or rather the visual language that we've been creating for it. So in an adventure, more than anything, you have to make sure everything on the page lines up with what's going on in the adventure, so that as you move from page to page, you're moving further into the adventure, but you want to have everything on the same page, like the map and the description of the environments and any DM stuff. It should all be on the same page. So that was really difficult for me to figure out how to illustrate, like the maps that we had built, how to get those to properly sit in the page in the book. So I was trying to build the book while it was like I'd build like the first 8 pages, and then let's drop illustrations into those pages as we continue moving through the book. So normally, like in a character option or DM subsystem sort of book, like Color Mana or like the Bastion campaign or the Spelljammer book or Theurgy or like Pacts and Patrons of Ravnica, all those other books that I've published they're all linked down below. They all have free previews. You can go take a look at them. They're full of my art and ideas. Be welcome to enjoy. They're really fun. But all of those, it was easy to organize them and get them fully laid out as expected, and to have properly defined, like the illustrations in any of those books don't affect the mechanics that the book is talking about. It's just providing visualization. But with adventures in particular, when I'm illustrating a room, I need to make sure that what I'm illustrating is that room. The map is going to be on that page, the illustration is on that page, all the descriptive text is on that page. It all has to coincide and synchronize with each other. And if it doesn't, something feels off. So as an illustration would come together, it'd be like, do you want to change the illustration to continue complying with change the illustration to comply with what the text is, or do we want to change the text to help bolster the artwork that we produce? And since the artwork came second, that means I have to go back and revise stuff, which was, it was a pain in the ass to do, and I've never done a book that way, so it was clumsy. but I like the results. I think the book is infinitely better now after having taken so much time and effort to make sure how well everything synchronizes with each other. It was obviously the right choice, regardless of how ridiculously long it's taken me to build this book. The next 6-7 books that we do are going to flow much more smoothly than this is going to that had. So I should be able to kick through those books with God's grace much faster than I came through this book. And yeah, see, that's looking really cool. I'm really liking where we're at with this piece. Let's merge that down. We'll finish scraping up this front area here. Erase some of that, drop it down, and then continue to add in here. So fun. Oh, that's just about perfect. Good. This is really good placement. So I will be back tomorrow morning, about the same time tomorrow morning, but instead of doing artwork, I'll be doing game design. We're updating the 2024 spells that are in the player's handbook. We're translating all of them into the color magic paradigm. So like instead of mirror image being a illusion spell, although they are illusions, with the color mana system, those become blue spells. And like Fireball, instead of being an evocation spell using the 8 schools of magic in the player's handbook, it becomes a red spell because in Magic the Gathering, fire is red. So we're going through every spell in the player's handbook, and we're looking at how they've been changed in 2024. Like, what are they now in 2024? And do we need to make any alterations to the duration or the colors that the spell is devoted to? Have those changed? Do we need to update? Because we already did this list for 2014 years ago, but since we're going to be rebuilding those books using 2024 mechanics, it's time to reassess first all of the spells in the game to make sure that we still agree. Like if we need to make changes or like there's some new spells, we need to take those into consideration. So we've done the first 2 levels worth of spells. We're going to start it on 3rd level. We're going to do that tomorrow morning. It's going to start probably like around 6:30ish is my goal, and then I'll be I've got family in town this weekend, so I'll have time to myself tomorrow morning to get some stuff done. And then I'll go off and brunch and have a day with my family. And then, of course, I don't do this on Sundays. So I'll be back on Monday as per my normal schedule, doing artwork here in the morning. And then we'll be doing game design on Monday night. And Monday night, we're going to be working on Mecha and Kaiju. Taking the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration document that I published on DMsGuild, link down below, free preview. Fucking cool book. Check that stuff out. I am amazed I made that book. Again, it's so crazy. I put in a work order to the universe, and it gives me answers, and then I write them down, and then it becomes a really cool book. I mean, maybe if I was an important person, like some sort of astrophysicist or something, maybe the same process could be used to, figure out the universe or whatever. But I feel like I've been given phenomenal cosmic powers, and the only thing I want to do with it is make D&D stuff. So at least my megalomania is in check, right? I don't have any delusions of grandeur over here. It's a cool process. I want to design a mechanical system that works inside of the D&D game engine that depicts some sort of trope of play or a campaign style, and the answers just start filtering in. You can do this and do this and do this and do this, and then so I take all those things and I build a campaign out of it, and then I run it on my Discord server, And if people are having fun with it and it's cool, then we build it into a book. That's what happened with the color mana system for Magic the Gathering in D&D. That's what happened with the Pacts and Patrons of Ravnica. That's what happened with the Theurgy circle casting. I think I'm gonna have to change the name of that book to circle casting. The Spelljammer book, especially, that's how that turned out. So now we're going to further expand on Spelljammer and build mecha mechanics so that people can run around in giant Warforged suits and then create giant monsters to fight them with. So fun shit. Fun shit. The mecha operate at the 50-foot scale instead of the 5-foot scale. So basically your characters are being, like currently the characters are going to be in 20-foot mech. So they're gargantuan size, fighting 50 to 500-foot size monsters. So they need more punch, they need more firepower. So they build mecha suits that are basically just giant full plate armor suits that are an artificer infused with magic to operate around you. It's kind of like the what is it? The Titan, I think that's what they call it. The Titan suit for the armor with artificer. Basically, it's a permanent Titan suit, but it's the same magic power that makes the armorer's infiltrator and assault and whatever suits work. It's the same technology. Anyone can jump in, and when you're attuned to the suit, it does that. So basically, you become a 20-foot character fighting massive scale creatures. And it can get, the mecha will continue to grow in size as the campaign continues, as our characters gain levels, as we have higher ranks of power inside the mecha gear. Then the mecha will get bigger and have more abilities and have like its own power source, its own power resource system for magical effects and shit while you're piloting. And then we'll throw, like 200-foot dark mantles or like a 200, maybe like a 400-foot beholder, all sorts of nightmare shit. And you'll have these super power suits that you can do magical shit through to fight them, and the hope is to give a sort of XCOM 2 Pacific Rim sort of vibe. So the team is running around fighting kaiju while also like dealing with space pirates and poachers and demon infiltration and a coal, the Electro mine in the region delves too deep and cracks open Kybers. So now there's gibbering Malthers and Grimlocks coming out of the caves and attacking the miners. So the characters maybe like downgrade to a 10-foot hauler mech that they then A-team and gear up with weaponry so they can go delve into the mining shafts and fight these monsters at the 10-foot scale instead of the 5-foot scale because they're in 10-foot mecha, that sort of thing. So the Spelljammer system teaches us how to change scale of combat while still retaining 5e action economy. And then from there you can do all sorts of iterations like Mad Max convoy battles where the cars are moving at 50 miles per hour. So they're basically moving on 50-foot squares per round, like 10 squares per round is a minute. That's 500 feet per minute, which eventually translates into 50 miles per hour. But so understanding how to scale movement and to change the scale of your game to be able to incorporate different styles of play is another example of how you can play around with the 5e game engine to create different sort of role-playing and campaign experiences. It's like with this mecha kaiju stuff that we're building, I'm effectively building Lancer 5e. And people like Lancer a lot because of the customization of the vehicles and the use of action economy and the ease of being able to upgrade your mecha as you're like gaining levels. All of that exists in this mecha system that we've been building, except it's just built for 5e. So I know that Dark Matter, I think, is that what it's called? Mage Hand Press is putting out a sci-fi 5e thing, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they decide to do. But I will humbly say I don't think they're going to do anything better than how I've done it. And depending on how they handle ship combat, it'll be interesting to see what they present. I have a lot of faith in their ability to produce good work. But I've invested a fuck ton of time developing, playtesting, and verifying the viability of upscaled 5e combat. So I'll be interested to see if that's how they pursue that approach, or how they approach that. Sorry, I'm sounding like a snob right now, but this is stuff that I have a lot of opinions about, and I've invested a ton of energy into understanding well. So I'm always interested to see what other content, like anytime there's like a mass combat book that comes out, I always look at it to see how they're handling mass combat, because I have a lot of different solutions that I have built for mass combat, and most of my ideas I haven't seen reflected anywhere yet. So I'm always curious as somebody, like, I was amazed the color mana system, how easy and intuitive it is, wasn't already done by somebody. It's like, surely this exists somewhere. It's so fucking obvious. But no, I've never seen anyone else utilize spell points like that. And it's like, wow, it's such an easy function in 5e to create these different mana school, like different like color magic or different schools of magic that require you, like devote your spell slots to evocation if you want to cast Fireball. That sounds stupid, using spell slots with 8 schools, but when you have spell points and only 5 colors, suddenly the ratios are pretty reasonable, especially because most characters don't need more than 2 or 3 colors to do what they want with their character. So you only have to break up your mana pool, like if you have 100 mana and you've got 50 points devoted to white and 50 points devoted to red, you can cast a shitload of fireballs because it's a 1-to-1 point ratio. So, and each point is a different color. And when you want to cast red, you use red mana. When you want to cast a blue spell, you use blue mana. It's a super easy, obvious system. It's super easy to do, but no one had done it yet. So I was amazed that was still like in a unique concept. So I'm like, oh hell yeah, I'm gonna make a book out of this. Blah blah blah. That's where I go. So I hadn't seen anybody using like scaling mechanics the way that we were, and so it's like, well, this scaling mechanics idea seems pretty fresh. Let's build a book out of it. So now whenever someone comes out with a sci-fi book for 5e that deals with vehicles, I'm always curious, how are you handling those vehicles? Because the way that we do it is basically the pilot is basically wild shapes into the quote unquote into the ship. While you're piloting the ship, you're bonded to it, and so it like the ship's frame basically becomes temporary hit points, and while you're piloting, you can use your hit point pool to add to the ship's hit points. So you want like a tanky character, like a barbarian makes a great combat pilot because they have shitloads of hit points. Their barbarian rage gives you resistance to the type of damage that siege weapons would do to the ship, so you can tank a fuck ton of damage as a pilot, but like you don't have any spell casting. So like if you have a spell casting character on board, you want to have them like be a co-pilot with you so that they can provide spell power to what you're doing. So you have like this Han Solo Chewbacca sort of thing going, where you've got 2 people using their action economy together, kind of like Pacific Rim, to make their ship go. And for mecha, all you have to do is just make the ship human shaped and give them super big weapons, which we already have scaled, and you're good to go. So like it's a super simple solution for mecha combat, but I have never seen it done by anybody in 5e. So that's why we're building that book and running that campaign, so we can find any hidden stumbling blocks to get rid of them before we publish it. So again, Mage Hand Press is doing mecha and sci-fi stuff in space. I'm really looking forward to what solutions they come up with, and I'll be surprised. I'm always afraid, but have yet to be disappointed whether or not somebody else gets onto that same thought process as me. And I've yet to see other people come up with solutions that are similar space to what I do. So I'm always curious to see what other people's solutions are, because what I see, I think is so obvious. But how can it can't be that obvious because no one else seems to find it. So I feel fortunate that I apparently this perceptive process is missing from the game space, and for whatever reason it's my thought process. So I want to stay in this space and help build these tools. I think it's important for the hobby, and I think it's important for 5e in general, because WotC doesn't push the game engine. They don't push it into new directions. They don't do experimental stuff like this. They leave that shit to third-party couture creators like me that are willing to take the R&D cost and produce the thing, while they just maintain the stability of what the 5e game engine is as the anchor of that game system. I mean, they created it. They are the anchor. So that also means that they're going to be the least progressive. They're not going to be highly experimental. You can see that from their Unearthed Arcanas that they released. They'll put out an experimental idea, and when it gets pushed back, they ditch it. They're not like, we have conviction that this is a really good idea and that we're going to have a better game as a result of it. They're not interested in trying to push the zeitgeist in a new mechanical direction. Even the changes that they made to character backgrounds and species isn't innovative. It's just taking, well, I guess you can say it's innovative. They are innovating. They are making modifications and changing, but they're very small, safe, questionably necessary steps in the progress. Like, they're not redefining how the 5e game engine works, or like they're not taking what were optional ideas and then making them core features and building characters around that new paradigm. They're just taking what the 5e game engine is and iterating more themes inside of the same space that they've created. Does that make sense? I mean, but to be fair, when once I update the 2020, like the color mana system to 2024, I'll be releasing a shitload of iterative content, like the Book of Dimir, the Book of Boros, Strixhaven colleges, like all that. Once I have the mechanics in place, that gives me the reference for me to do iterative content. But that's just basically the same as what 5e, what WotC is doing. Is we built this game engine. Here's a whole bunch of cool shit that you can do with it. But I guess my complaint boils down to they have their way they use 5e, and they're not innovating the way that you use the 5e game engine, right? They're just keeping like every book that I release uses the 5e game engine in a different way. So that's the pioneer, innovative, creativity itch that I get to scratch. Is to change how you use the 5e game engine to change the type of campaign that you can play. And while WotC hints that's something you can do, they don't really demonstrate it themselves, and they don't provide any guidance on how. So we have to go figure that shit out on our own. And I think that's what they intend. So I don't begrudge them that, because it allows me, like, if WotC made these books, I would not have to make them. I would just build characters and do character art and, scenery and shit. It'd be fun. But here I am. Anyway, weird conversation. Thank you for indulging me. I get on little rants like that occasionally because I'm really passionate about D&D in general. I've been playing D&D since 1987. I've tristed with other types of games like I did a lot of Palladium, World of Darkness, some Pathfinder, Numenera, Gamma World, a couple different editions of Gamma World, Shadowrun, Call of Cthulhu, Hole, Toon, Marvel Heroes. What was it called? Superheroes, I think. Marvel Superheroes back in the early late 80s, early 90s. I'm sure there's more, but that's what I can think of off the top of my head. But a lot of game systems, a lot of years, and I always come back to D&D. D&D is always my anchor point, my touchstone. I always end up back here. I didn't like 4E very much. It just didn't feel like 4E, so I played Pathfinder and Numenera instead during the 4E era. But 5E feels like a space between 3E and 5E. I really feel like Wizards timeline got scuttled. I feel like if we had done it all over again, I think 3E was a really great just new reset. Like that's the idea of innovating the game into a new thing. Like 3E just broke the mold, man. That was such a cool game, but it was highly complicated, too complicated. So I think what would be a natural, like if we were to rewrite history, we'd have 3E, and then we'd have 5E, because it backs away a little bit from the intensity of what 3E was, and still retains a lot of the flavor, and kind of steps back towards 2E a little bit with the character builds. And then in the timeline moving forward again, then I think 4E would have happened. Like if we had gone through it, the timeline is all wrong though, but 5E would have been a good transition out of 3E, and then from 5E it could have ran for 20 years, and then like say 10 years ago 4E comes out, and I think the RPG audience would be far more receptive, or is far more receptive to 4E concepts now than it had been then, because we've had a whole generation grow up on console gaming that is basically coded like how 4E operates. So I think 4E was too far ahead mechanically of where the role-playing game audience was with video games. And now that video games have continued to evolve, 4E makes a lot more intuitive sense about how it's organized, which was WotC's original intent, but it was too soon. The market still hadn't just accepted that WoW and any other MMORPG game economy, like action economy and like stat build, was like the accepted way. But now that we've had so many people running through those sort of games, it makes sense. It would resonate now that you could potentially pull people out of the MMORPG space that just has you fetch another 50 goat skins and I'll give you a +1 bonus to your goat herding skill or whatever. Like that's pretty bland, and you can burn out on that. So being able to offer role-playing games as a respite from that routine, it could potentially pull new people. Like I can interact with people that I like, and I can do it online, and it allows me to be spontaneous and creative and like solve problems instead of fetching quests. And that is something I think that people now are more and more interested in. So if they had built like 6E to be like a space between 5E and 4E, then I think they would have actually had a chance to pull in like the console game market a little bit more. Like here's some freedom of direction for you to narrate your characters the way that you want, which is what role-playing games are really awesome about. So it's a little weird. It's WotC has always just been a little bit off on their timing with stuff, it seems. More so now than before. I mean, before there was no expectation, so they dropped something like, hey, here's 3E, it's amazing. And we're like, yeah, that's amazing. I'm gonna play that for 20 years. Let's go. No, it was 10 years. Yeah, about 10 years. That's a decent life cycle. That's a decent life cycle for an edition of a game. I'm building all these tools for 5E, knowing that eventually it's going to become 6E, and most of this stuff is irrelevant. At that point, I'm going to have to really be like, am I still updating this stuff? Am I going to make this current for 6E, or will I be onto something completely of my own, doing whatever by the time 6E comes around? I honestly have no idea. I'll be interested to see how that shakes out. There we go. Fix my screen. So hello to people that are coming through. Appreciate y'all being here. Let's merge this down. There we go. And now I think what I want to do is I'm gonna poke at the ground a little bit more, because this is I don't think it's unrealistic, but it seems like it's a little bit more aggressive in upturned Earth than I need to be this far away from the actual hole in the ground. So I'm gonna cool this down a little bit, drop some of these peaks, and then we'll start looking at doing this ground texture and adding in little, gas packets and stuff. And then we'll build the ghast crawling out of the grave. And then we'll move on to the next piece. I suspect we'll be doing this until Tuesday. So I do artwork like this Monday through Fridays in the morning, for typically from say Seattle time PST minus 8 UTC, typically from 6:30 till 8 o'clock. But I have a half day today at work, and I don't need to show up for another 2 hours. So I'm going to put some more artwork in now and just get some work done and just hang out with you guys. And then I'll log out and I'll go do my day job, and then I'll be back tomorrow morning. So Monday through Friday we do artwork like this. This is an extended session. This is a holiday schedule that I'm on right now. So normally I'm not playing this late in the day. It's usually earlier. But I'm really happy about this. So, and then on Mondays and Thursday nights is when I do game design, like we're doing the Mecha Kaiju mechanics and building a Spelljammer campaign in orbit around Eberron to fight, megafauna floating in space, attacking asteroid colonies. Fade that in. So Mondays and Thursday nights we do game design, and what we work on always changes. It just depends on what the current effort is, and we have updates on that stuff. And then on Saturday mornings I also do game design, and so on Saturdays I do Saturdays and sometimes lunch when I'm working from home. I can log out and then jump online here for a lunchtime, and I work on the Magic the Gathering color mana system for 5e24. So we'll be doing that tomorrow morning, and possibly Monday lunchtime as well. Possibly. Just blend that in like that. And push this over to help flatten out this plane here so it doesn't look so elevated. And so we got a couple weeks left on this book. And once it publishes, we'll transition to the next thing, which will be Bastion campaigns and the color mana system. And then behind the color mana system, we'll publish Martial Powers. And I'm excited. That's the Martial Powers gives all the martial characters a half-caster mana resource, so that all 14 character types in D&D, all 14 character classes, all use the same mana mechanic as a class resource. So like fighters get mana, barbarians get mana, all the casters get mana, rogue gets mana. That way, if you're doing a Magic the Gathering game, you can use these variant class features so that every character is using color mana, so that it's it's just consistent across the board. Even if you don't do anything with the mana, if you don't want to, you'd be crazy not to, because holy shit, that stuff's fun. But just having the mana pool helps bond your character's identity to the alignment of your character using colors and the guild, college, or gods that you're devoted to with your color. So if I wanted to build a character that's like paladin generic heroism of righteousness and good, that's like Boros energy, which is white-red. And so in Ravnica, white-red would be the Boros Legion. In Strixhaven, that would be Lorehold. In Theros, that would be devoted to worship of the god Ero. So, or Eruin, I think is what it is. Anyway, I'm not really sharp on my Theros gods. There's 15 gods, and I barely know any of their names. I understand what they do from Magic the Gathering, but I don't know their names so good, at all. That's a weakness in my lore. But regardless, I can be devoted, I can be primary white, and that would give me allegiance with Eo. So whatever two colors I use in my personality, those are in Theros the gods that, in this case, white red, I would like there would be aspects of myself that would be, oh god, I can't even remember his fucking name. There's a god of chaos and destruction that's black red energy in Theros. That's the counter, or like the foil to the white red. But my character having white red identity means that I can understand all of the gods that have white in their identity, and I can understand all the gods that have red in their identity. So there's 8, like between white and red, there's like 8 gods that my character would be naturally aligned with and could gain quests from, and would make sense that they would advance the piety of them because they've bound their character's alignment to those colors. So those gods make sense to that character. They just intuitively work with them. So that's a really fun way to do identity in Theros, even though I'm not super sharp on all their names. So giving all the martial characters a mana identity and then a resource that utilizes that mana, just like spellcasters do, basically puts all of the martials on par with half-casters. So the martial-caster divide reduces significantly to the difference between half-casters and full-casters. And then give the half-casters and martials unique uses of mana that full-casters don't get. Now they have a unique play style that spellcasters can't duplicate. Spellcasters have big boom Nova strikes and a ton of utility and like combat control, while the martial characters gain access to a bunch of ability modifiers, movement, perception, damage, attacking styles, and like being able to alter themselves, like give themselves water breathing and shit like that for like indefinitely. So it's a different style of magic, but it uses the same mana system. So like if you're and then the half casters are hybrids, they can use mana every way, but only half as good as spellcasters can and equal to what martials can. So they the hybrids actually are like a realistic half step between martials and casters once everybody has access to mana. So it's a really fun system, but again, that's another example of how you can change how the 5e game engine works with like changing action economy and spell durations and concentration rules and stuff. You can mess around with those to create different styles of play that, as long as you do all the work to make sure everything is consistent, will work. Even if it isn't like out of the box D&D, if it has all of the details resolved and goes to the same level of depth of clarification with variant rules as the player's handbook does with the core rules, you can effectively replace the core rules with new mechanical systems that they themselves create their own balance point inside of themselves. The problem with using homebrew and variant rules is, how do they interact with other homebrew and variant rules? How do those things overlap? How do they grind against each other and create inconsistencies? So when you're building new mechanical systems, you have to do your due diligence and go through how is this going to affect these different aspects of play. And like, for example, amplifying spells. In Spelljammer, you can amplify a spell up to like the scale of 50 and 500 feet, which can sound crazy because like, so what, you can like lightning bolt, for example, has a range of 120 feet, which is 60. Yeah, that's 60 squares at the 5-foot scale. Well, in Spelljammer, if you're doing ship combat at the 500-foot scale, and you want to cast a lightning bolt, and you're operating ships occupying one 500-foot square, then you having 60 squares worth of space to hit that ship with a lightning bolt is effectively the same as affecting characters at the 5-foot scale, hitting with a lightning bolt 50 feet, 120 feet away at the 5-foot scale. So that's fine. That's all fine and good when your ships are, in space or flying around moons and stuff, and you fire off a 6,000 foot lightning bolt to hit your enemy ship like you would in combat, in a pasture fighting monsters. You cracked off a lightning bolt. There you go. That makes sense. And it's basically the same thing when you're doing like combat scenarios. But when you step out of combat, you start looking at like, what's the broader application of this? If I can have my ship come into orbit and then basically park themselves a mile above a city and then drop a 500-foot wide lightning bolt down on you, you're going to cause ridiculous damage. But that is essentially the same as having a thunderstorm park over a city and dump lightning bolts down on it for a day, right? So first off, getting a 500-foot scale fireball, lightning bolt is going to cost you 2 extra spell levels. So it's incredibly expensive to try to do it. And 2, all these spells in D&D don't damage structures and objects. So if you throw down a lightning bolt onto a city, at most it's going to affect the people that are outdoors. But taking that into account, if you're in a Spelljammer campaign where ships can do things like that, that means that any city population of any merit is going to use the same Spelljammer technology to keep an eye out for Spelljammer ships that might come around and drop 500-foot lightning bolts onto your city for terrorism. So you have defenses against that also operate at the 500-foot scale. So everything that you can do on your ship at the 500-foot scale with the magical equipment that's in your ship can also be in any city that has any town of like 1,000 or more people can have defenses at the same price point as the attackers in the ships. It's basically your town has basically the same capabilities as a Spelljammer ship. It just doesn't move. So if you come close to it, it can do all this. Like you're like, oh man, you can drop a 500-foot wide, 1 mile long lightning bolt onto the city. That's so broken. But at the same time, that city can hit you with a mile-long, 500-foot wide lightning bolt, and now your ship's going to eat that. But the damage doesn't change. It's still just 6d6 damage, which sounds dangerous, but again, buildings are immune to this, ships are not. And if you have cover, if you are indoors, you are not harmed. So using the same systems of Spelljammer to detect Spelljammer ships that you use to detect Spelljammer ships knows you're coming. So it just rings the warning bell, and everyone goes under cover, clears the street, because Spelljammer attack, clear the streets, and no one gets hurt. The only time you're really going to hurt each other with spells at this scale is when you're fighting ship to ship or kaiju combat. So it's actually not a problem at all. Some people need to, it sounds crazy, but when you understand how the spells work, this stuff actually makes a lot of sense. And you can effectively upscale a spell like that at those massive scales and range, so that you can interact with larger scale creatures and fleets of ships and like asteroid bases and combat shit like that, while still being not completely overwhelming and cheap to destroy other people. You see what I'm saying? Because I mean, any ship could just park over you with like 7 trebuchet and deal 7d10 times 10 damage per round to you, and just completely carpet bomb a city if you wanted to. Or you could have a spellcaster that might have 2 lightning bolts in them, because that's 10 spell levels that they need to crank off. That's a 3rd level character. Sorry, that's a 5th level character, and there's not a lot of 5th level characters in the world. So you can't expect every ship to come along to be able to do that. It has to be an advanced high-level threat to be able to do that kind of damage with spells against environments. Otherwise, it's just cheaper just to throw down shitloads of stones, which anyone can do. Anyone can have a Spelljammer ship and then start carpet bombing a city with trebuchet. How do you stop them? Well, you're going to fight back with trebuchet of your own. You're going to fire at the ship until it fucking goes away. Or you knock it out of the sky, and then, well, there you go. That's how you keep dragons from attacking your village, by having siege weapons that will cause severe damage to that creature for coming within range of your weapons. Spell casting is the exact same way. But if we have a means of scaling up spells, then if you have a spellcaster in your mecha suit and you're fighting kaiju at the 50-foot scale, now you can still do fireballs and lightning bolts and like cast Zephyr Strike to surge your armor to phase shift and close distance to attack that weak spot that you've detected on the kaiju. to help drive it away. Fun stuff. It all makes sense in context, but you have to see the full picture. Anything in isolation can't. You have to have context to understand the intent of different mechanics, which is why I take the time to build all these things out into these books and illustrate them so that it's fun to explore those ideas and take what you like and leave the rest. And I'm going to fade down this background here to help mellow out these mounds. I like this little patch of light here. I don't know why that's there, but I'm going to keep it because it seems interesting. I'm going to actually back off here. I got a buzz on my speaker. It's just a zzz. There's something misaligned about my speakers, but I don't want to stop and fix it because that's annoying for you guys. I don't want to do that to you. Let's go into here. Let's hit this with some light just to drop that down. There we go. That feels pretty good. Now let's go back here and smooth this all out like that. I'm going to switch to a cloud brush to blend this in much better. That feels pretty good. Cool. All right, now back to here. Let's continue blending this down. So yeah, when this project finishes, we're going to have a transition between before the next book is ready to start doing artwork. So I'm going to spend probably a month doing Bob Ross landscape environments and just whatever. I think I've got a commission I'm going to be working on, and I'll be doing that on a live screen. I don't do a lot of commissions because most of my art time is being used for whatever book I'm building. But occasionally, like I did some commissions between Spelljammer and Eberron. So I'll have a little bit of space open for me to play for a little while before I start getting serious and like start building out like we're gonna do like all the mecha. Like I need to build a signature look for the mecha that we're gonna do and the kaiju, and I can safely do kaiju tokens because those always like fit inside squares, so those are always safe to do. Like all of these illustrations fit inside of a square. So, and this is the space that we have in the stat block for them. So like if we do kaiju stat blocks, we'll be able to fill them in and then have an image of the kaiju here in a square and then use that illustration as the token in the kaiju adventuring that we do. So like that's something I can do even though the book isn't built yet. That's asset production, not illustration. But you know, the assets are illustrations, so it all works out. But yeah, we won't need to do anything specifically. So I'm going to do some Bob Ross landscape environment paintings. There's a lot of the Earth Porn subreddit, and Microsoft Office desktop provides all sorts of just beautiful scenes in the real world and nature, and I will take those and then translate those into the Bob Ross style of painting. And then maybe do something fantastic to magicify it, to make it a wondrous location, like a glowing tree, or who knows. I'll probably do something to add a splash of, like maybe put a castle somewhere, or do something that splashes fantasy into the illustration. But we're going to be doing a Bastions campaign. That's going to be one of our supplements that we work on throughout the rest of this year. And that's going to be a bunch of like structures and rooms and environment pieces of like this castle in this glade or whatever it is that we come up with. So we'll be doing a lot of environmental landscape stuff for the Bastion campaign once we start getting serious. Once we finish building that book and we get serious about layouts and art and shit. So that's coming along. There's a lot of stuff that we're going to have on our plate this year. I'm really excited about it because None of them are as intense as adventures, and adventures are so ridiculous because you have to coordinate everything on the page, all the like the room and the detail and descriptions and stuff. It all has to be around each other. And when you're doing just a supplement, like a rules supplement or character options, that's just basically a well illustrated alphabetical list of stuff. And it's so much easier to compose it. Break it down into individual chapters, break down the chapters into themes, detail all the mechanics and description of what that theme is, put an illustration where it makes sense, move on to the next topic and the themes inside of that topic, and just A to Z go through your book, throw in illustrations where you want, and then kick it out into the world and let people chew on it. Like it's a much easier process than spatially aligning an adventure with all the maps, descriptions, details, and new rules that are introduced to make that all coordinate together. It's ironic that that adventures are the most difficult thing to compose and the most important thing to have for any game system that you're using, but also receives it has the smallest sale value. People will always buy your rules, but whether they buy an adventure that uses those rules or not is going to depend on how excited are they to use your rules in the first place. So making your own role-playing game requires that you provide adventure content for that role-playing game so that people have a native environment to utilize the rules that you build. But it's also those adventures will give you the least amount of money because they require people wanting to use your rules to run them, unless you build a system agnostic adventure, and then your game mechanics will naturally allow you to align with system agnostic things. Like if you have, like in D&D, you can use a system agnostic adventure, but then you have to go through all the prep work of making it work with the 5e game engine. 5e is a mechanically heavy game, so it requires the world to be expressed in its mechanics to make sense with the rules that the game supports, as opposed to something much looser like Numenera, for example, the Cypher system. You can literally run any world in the Cypher system, and everything is just a difficulty on a scale of 1 to 10, and then from there you figure out what skills and tools are available to your character to solve the problem, whether you negotiate, kill, trick, or sneak past this creature. The target number is always the same. Like if it's a difficulty 7, it's always going to be hit a DC 21 on your D20 check. It's always the same. It's super. So the DM just creates interesting flavor and scenarios, and just assigns a number to this encounter, and that becomes the number that you're going to have to hit with the various die rolls that you're going to make. So it makes prepping as a DM, like a spontaneous improvised DM. Numenera or the Cypher system is one of the fastest, most dynamic game systems that I've ever ran across for the DM to be able to narrate campaigns. But I don't like its mechanics. For the characters, for the players, it's mechanically dense, kind of like 5th edition or 4th edition is, or Pathfinder. It's kind of mechanically dense, and it silos what your character can do. So while Numenera is incredibly flexible as a game engine for the DM, it's mechanically strict for the players. So you're very much playing different games. And I think if I were to publish my own role-playing game, it would be taking the best of Shadow Dark and Numenera and blending them together. It's because both Shadow Dark and Numenera are narratively nimble systems, but Shadow Dark is a very light system for characters. So I'd want a very light system like that. So you can already do that with Shadow Dark. It's just a matter of like, how do you build your characters? I don't necessarily like how you build characters in Shadow Dark. It's still class based. And it's still restrictive on like how you use action economy, how you can break up your actions to interact with stuff, and I think it's a little bit too restrictive in that narrative. So if I were to build my own role-playing game, and I just haven't published it, it's much mechanically lighter than it's for players, it's as mechanically light as say Maze Rats. That's my timer, and I like where this environment is sitting. I like the soil here. I'm pretty happy with this. I think we've smoothed this down enough that it feels exhumed without being too much dirt. So I can blend this in. We're going to add texture on top of this next, and then we'll start. And then we can start working on the gravestone, and then the ghast or ghoul or whatever that's the ghoul that's crawling out of here, and then we'll do the lighting, the under lighting from inside the grave to give it that creepy under light effect. So, like I said, I don't think I'm going to finish this until Tuesday, and I basically have another 20 minutes this morning that I can play. So I have until 9 a.m. Seattle time today, and it's 8:26 right now. I'm going to take a sip of coffee and water and take a quick mental break. And say thank you to everybody that's been kicking through here and checking out the work that I'm doing and allowing me to rant at you guys. Art is a very lonely process. I'm going to actually work on the headstone here. Art is a very lonely process, and because I basically have to build this shit, right? So let's grab a dark here. Let's start working this. I'll probably do something like that. So it's when I was talking about this the other day when I got into art in my teens. It was while I was hanging out with friends, like in our room or in the family room or whatever it is that we were at when we were growing up, wherever we were hanging out. I would do art while like somebody like Kyle would play guitar, or somebody would play like somebody would be playing on a video game. Like there might be like 4 or 5 of us, and then we're playing Super Mario Brothers or like Metroid or something on the old original NES. And like Kyle would be playing classical guitar because he needs to get his 3 hours of practice in a day, and then I would just, because I wasn't good at video games. I was never good at video games, so I would never actually pilot the ship. Connor and Kevin were most often piloting in the on the video game of choice that month. And so since I didn't actually play myself, I would just be able to hang out and bullshit with them while I'm basically sitting on the couch next to them drawing, whatever the most recent things it is that we did in D&D together, or whatever shenanigans came along, blah blah. It was just, and we were all talking and bullshitting with each other, and it's kind of like a home study, like a home study hall, and it was a really fun environment. So that's how I grew up, and then I kept doing art and stuff in college. And again, it was just me hanging out with people that were either drinking and playing backgammon or whatever. I would just grab a sketchbook and I just sketch and bullshit with each other about what's going on. And for me, artwork was always a very social space, which is why I love the drink and draws that Albert and I had in Seattle, like pre-COVID days. COVID pretty much killed that for a year. And then I moved to the far northern reaches of Seattle and Everett, and so I just kind of naturally fell out of that group, and then started having a work from home policy at the marketing company that I work for. And I never talk about the actual company I work for because if you hate me, I don't want that to come down on my professional work. But this is a side hustle for me. So I do this before I go to my day job. Normally I'd be logged out already, but I'm having a half day, which means I can start late and end early, and I'm totally going to take advantage of that. Let's get rid of that. Now let's go grab our stone sample here. That. that in. I'm going to drop the opacity on that line art. Yeah. Drop the opacity on the line art. Make it blend into the stone a little bit better. I don't quite want to be there yet. I'm not ready to merge the two layers though. I do want to get rid of that. There. Like that. Yeah, this feels good. I'm really happy with this so far. We're doing great over here. This is all really good. So let's yeah, I like this. Let's merge those layers together. Now it's one layer. Then come through here and I can start. I'm gonna grab my guitar pick for a stronger edge. Start. Again, I could erase, I could paint over, but I like smudging. I like the water, like the finger paint sort of feel of literally just pushing the pixels around the page. The tablet, the Wacom tablet that I use allows me to have this tactile interaction with the monitor. So the resistance of the board on the pen, I can feel it. And my eye tricks me into thinking like there's like a feeling of momentum or a feeling of resistance with the pixels. And I suspect I have that imagined relationship because I've been using Photoshop for decades. So I think my brain has made a phantom connection between me looking at the pixels and knowing how they're moving, and the weight and resistance of the board against the pen gets translated in my brain as like a mass, like a physical bunch, like a glob of color, like pigment, and I'm like pushing the paint across the page. I have this tactile sensation interacting with the board and watching the pixels move at different degrees of strength in the pixel brush. Like this is like 30%. That's all the give that I have. But if I crank it up to 85, that's the give that I have. So it becomes much more. It has a lower like the lower the strength of the smudge, the more viscosity. The lower the viscosity of the material becomes. The higher the strength of the pen, the easier it is to push. The more viscosity the paint substance has inside of the Photoshop environment, if that makes any sense at all. So I have this. I know it's false, but I can feel it. This tactile interaction, this resistance that I see the resistance, but I feel it. Like a tactile sensation on the Wacom tablet while I'm pushing my pen across the plastic. I know it's totally imagined, but I think that's just an adaptation that my body just naturally slipped into. And of course, if I don't look, it doesn't work because it's a false signal created by visually interacting with the art. But it's a fun experience. I enjoy it. It's the same like with a pencil on paper. Like you have that traction that you get when you're doodling or sketching in a sketch pad. That tactile grab that the pencil has on the rough page surface. It's sort of that same feeling. Let's do that. First we straighten out the stone, and then we chop it up. It's gonna be fatigued. I think fatigued is the word I'm looking for. But I want to get the base the base original form correct, so that when we rough it up, it'll feel more realistic. Again, in illustration, you want to meet the expectation of the viewer. If the viewer, if you provide something that, like, your eye is looking to offload effort. So the problem is when you make something wrong or you don't properly depict the thing that you're trying to do. Like, if you do a bad job in illustration, is however you get there, if you've done a bad job, the person viewing your art is going to spend more time trying to figure out what the fuck are you trying to do, instead of falling into the piece to see what are you trying to say. You know, like what is that supposed to be, as opposed to what is that thing saying. If you can identify all the elements in the piece immediately without having to ask what the fuck is this, then you've gotten past the first barrier. It's accepted this is the composition is X, Y, or Z. And once you get to that point, then you can start working with, like, what's the message? What's the emotion here? What am I trying to express? Because the brain isn't preoccupied with trying to figure out what the hell is this thing that we're trying to do here. So the easier, like, that's why you want, like, good illustration. Good illustration is I immediately understand what it is that you're trying to depict in this piece. Once you get to that point, like, the least friction you create between what am I supposed to be looking at versus what do I accept that it is, the more they accept with least questions, the more you're able to actually get your message across. Whether it's just a vibe or an emotional feel, or some sort of satire, or it's a mechanical, like it's a technical illustration. If you meet the expectations of the viewer so they understand immediately what it is that they're looking at, they won't spend any time asking, what is this? Which means they won't scrutinize your technique as much. Like, I might have a unique art style that makes people, of how I depict, like, the appearance of people. But if it's aesthetically pleasing or it's mechanically consistent, the eye will start to just accept this is the language that we're speaking right now, this visual language. If your style is inconsistent or poorly executed so that there's errors, the eye is going to spend more time hyperfixating on, is this an error or was this intentional? When it doesn't have to doubt the intention of the piece, it can pay attention to the message of the piece. You see how that works? Like, we know what you're trying to do here, so what are you trying to say with it? Instead of hyperfixating on what are you trying to depict? Like, hopefully that makes sense. So all your art techniques are a means of coaxing the eye into relaxing, so that it doesn't question what it's looking at. It questions, why was it made? So if I do a good job as an illustrator, you won't have to get stuck at any point of, like, is that accurate? Is that perspective right? And, like, if the perspective feels right, you're not going to ask, and then it just blends into the piece with perspective, and it becomes a background basic function of physics. And it's when that basic function gets disrupted with poor technique that your eye says, what the fuck are you actually trying to do here? And it pulls them out of the immersion. Anyway, that's a rant. Hopefully that made sense. I don't know why I was on that topic, but there it was. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Hey, we got a cool little break in here, so I'm going to just lean into that a little bit. We are done with the fucking around phase of this headstone, and we are now into the find out portion, where we start cleaving away at what we've built and disrupt its shape. on purpose. And we can dig into it and all sorts of madness like that. I'm just going to mess around with the frame, just give it nicks and bumps and age it. It's far too uniform in its current format, so I'm going to have to scuff the hell out of it. That. And then pock this. I'm going to just add in some lines here and start smudging them in to cause some aging. We'll see how that looks after a few minutes here. And I think what'll end up happening is I'm going to be done here like in about 10 minutes or so. I'm going to start a 20-minute timer. That'll put us just past 9 o'clock, and that's when I'm going to go ahead and cut stream for the day. I took the day off so I could spend time with family, but I've got family visiting out of town. But I don't need to get together with him until like 10. So I had a little bit of free time this morning to get some pixels in, and I'll have the same opportunity tomorrow morning. So we'll work on the color mana system. Hey, what's up? Hey, Def, it's good to see you, my guy. Yeah, I get to play a little late today. But I've got about 20 minutes left on the clock, so this is where we're at so far. This is going to end up being a really, really fun piece. There we go. Yeah, no kidding, right? Well, it's just landscape. I mean, it's just groundwork. It's the same techniques that I use for Bob Ross mostly, so it's easy. It's easy to drill through this shit. How long have I been doing this morning? Like 2 hours, an hour and 48 minutes. So yeah, the ghoul coming out of the grave will be where most of the time is going to be spent on this. I might end up spending more than one session on that. I'm pretty happy with where that's at. Just bring that in a smidge. What'd you say? True story. Just want to layer that stuff in here. Just to break it up a little bit. I see text. Hold on. So? How deep you figure they bury those headstones? I don't think very. I suspect they come down to here. So I can probably have a little bit of it poking out down here. Great question. I don't know if this will be visible behind the ghoul, but it's a neat idea to have it there. Well, what you want, it makes a lot of sense. If the stone was further away, I wouldn't need to do that, but I specifically have it like super close so we could do a fun little interaction like this. You got a really good idea for fun little details and ways to like to bend things around. I don't know if that's the right way of putting it. Like that little extra, like you're really good at finding extras, you know? I think I want to do that. I'm going to put this base down here for perspective, but it's going to get hit. The Vulpina that's down in the pit, that's creating the underlighting, that's going to create a hard line along the edge here, like that, when we get to it. But that'll be fun. That perspective is wrong. There, that's a little bit better. Good. There we go. Yeah, you have. Hey, Steve, it's good to see you, my dude. Yeah, mad respect to veteran artists, y'all. It's like if you ever watch the Food Network and they have like all these competition shows, but they have like this limited roster of like 30 cooks that you'll see them mix and match different sort of cooks to make different shows. I fucking love that. It's like the Food Network is like a West March for cooks, and the adventures they go on are the different competitions. But they all know it because they've all competed and fucked around with each other for so long. They all know each other, so they all just like, yeah, I'm gonna make this strudel with chocolate. It's like, oh, I get what you're doing there. Like they get each other. You know, they have that same sort of play space. I see a lot of that similarity here. I think a lot of like artists that are on the same wavelength, they just kind of naturally get each other, and it's like, ooh, yeah, that's fun. Anyway, that's a half-baked thought. Pardon the pun. Let's take that, grit through here with it. I see text. I'll catch up with you in a second. Text, I'm neglecting you. Hello there. Hello. Did you say hello? No, I said hello, but I suppose that's close enough. stone has to be hard-edged. So I have to clean up all this fluff. Again, we want to straighten up these lines, get rid of the fluffiness of the edges. It has to be hard-edged. There, that feels pretty good. So when we come back and we'll continue working on this on Monday. On Monday, we're going to get this grit texture down on the ground, put some Lotharia patches around here for some lighting. We'll drop Lotharia down inside here for upward cast lighting. And then we'll put our undead crawling out of it. Free transform. About like that. That's probably too big. Let's no, we can leave that be. It's the size of the undead versus the tombstone is what's throwing me for a loop. So let's see if I can up the tombstone. I think that still works. Where are you at? There you are. Words down. Very good. So strength up a little bit. Smudge that in. Like that. There we go. Texture going in here to bleed that in. Nope. Wrong. Thank you. There. Yeah, this will work out. Transform. Something like that. Yeah, when we come back on Monday, we're going to do the texture on the ground. That won't take us very long, and then we'll get into building out this undead. And then when we finish that, we'll move on to the next piece. But it is 8:55. I am hitting my deadline for the day, so I'm going to go ahead and log out. I'm going to be back tomorrow morning, probably at 6. I think from 6:30 till 8:30 is I'll do a 2-hour stretch tomorrow morning. We'll get through the third level of the color mana spell points. We'll convert all the spells to their appropriate colors for 2024, and we might start into fourth level, and then I'll be done for the day. I'm gonna go have Saturday brunch with my family in town, and then they're gonna be gone by Sunday. So on Monday, I'll come back to my normal schedule, and we'll come back here. We'll finish this piece up. I suspect this one's going to go until Tuesday, and then we'll pick up the next piece after that. After this one, we have 5 more illustrations. I think this one is the most intense. I suspect this is going to be the most intensive one that we have to do. Don't hold me to that because God knows. But hey, if you thought this shit was cool, thanks. I'm glad that you did. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notification when we're live in the future. I do this Monday through Friday. We do game design on Monday and Thursday nights, and then we also do game design Saturday morning like tomorrow. So if you want to stick around and see what we got going on, be welcome to ask questions. You can join my Discord, which is here, free access. This is where we do all our playtesting, and I provide technical support and inspiration for people that utilize these mechanics that they've jumped in on with us. But yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks a lot for being here. Later.